Great. Appreciate folks joining here. We're going to be talking about Suite 3H, Walt Disney's offices and the animation building in Burbank. We had the pleasure of having Margot and our new son-in-law Weston come to town for 2 days, and we really Disney-fied it. We spent the first day at Disneyland, and Weston's a real Star Wars fan. I'm a Star Wars fan. I had never seen all the new Star Wars stuff. So we went and geeked out on that. Then we had some other fun. Would people like to start with pictures of Disneyland on the first day and then go to the Disney studios?
You're, yeah, whatever.
Great. Let me,
You're the boss.
Yeah, we're just here for the ride.
yeah, hang on here. Let me bring it up 1 second. Yeah, I thought folks that had not seen some of the Star Wars stuff might enjoy it. So let me start sharing the screen here. Okay, share screen. And I don't have video today, so I don't need to worry about that. So we started the day. We were really lucky. If you see the weather on it, it's gray and gloomy. While we were driving down to Disneyland, it was actually raining hard enough on the way that we needed to use the wipers. And as a result, there was also that, and they were closing at 8 o'clock at night for a gay pride night. So we think a lot of people didn't go to Disneyland that day because they didn't want to go out in the rain, or they didn't want to have to leave at 8 o'clock at night. They might as well go the next day and get a full day. We had next to no lines for anything. I mean, it was almost like walk on and, hi, we're waiting for you. Come on in. The next day, a friend of mine went. It was sunny. It was hotter than hell. And she said they waited for 2 hours for everything. So we really lucked out. So we're just walking on into a California Adventure. Sorry, to the Magic Kingdom, California Adventure behind us. We were using these old Disneyland tickets. One of the things that was a perk of working there was we had passes to the park, both Carol and I, but several times a year they would send you these cardboard tickets that you could give to friends or family, that sort of thing. And Margot is holding two sets of them, one from 1988 and one from 1989. Nice thing about these tickets, and we found out in advance before going down there, Margot was really worried that what if we get down and we don't have reservations, they won't let you in. Well, with these tickets, they'll let you in on any day of the year, even if it's full to capacity, if you're so inclined to do so. But the ticket takers really get a kick when you walk up and bring these up. The last time Carol and I did it, we gave him some tickets, and the guy said, "Oh my goodness, I just trained somebody in yesterday on how to handle these." I said, "You'll never ever see them, but just in case, hang on, I got to go get them." And they ran off and brought them back. So anyway, it's great fun to be able to go to see the mouse. And like I said, it was a very empty, quiet day there compared to most visits that you see on recent pictures people have taken. It was not anywhere near as jammed as it could be. I was really glad to see that they brought back a lot of the live street entertainment. The last time Carol and I were there was right before the pandemic. I gave a talk for the Disney Retirees Club, and they had gotten rid of a lot of it. But now with the 100-year celebration going on, there were all sorts of groups. So we'll see groups here. There were some outside of Pirates. All throughout the park, there were people performing. So these are all just pictures off the iPhone. Didn't bother centering anything. I'm walking, trying to keep up with Weston, who is urgently trying to get to go see Rise of the Resistance. But again, not particularly crowded. Off we go down beautiful Main Street. It was so light, they had most of the Main Street vehicles out. On so many days, you just can't even get them out on the street anymore because it's just clogged with people from side to side. One of the things you don't see out much there these days. And the castle's all done up for the 100th anniversary of the Disney company. But we couldn't go up to the castle. We had to swing a hard left, go through Frontierland. There's Carol and Margot as we're beating a very rapid pace over to the Star Wars area. And there it is. We had seen it during construction. We had been down there the last day of the operation for Big Thunder Ranchnet before they destroyed it to put the Star Wars land in. But this is the first time we actually got to see inside. And again, I'm walking very rapidly. Weston is setting the world speed record to get there. But it's great atmosphere. It's really a very immersive area. Evidently, when it first opened, it was more immersive with more characters that interacted with you. But we found to be a real interesting spot. Carol's not a real Star Wars fan, but I think she appreciated the scope of what they did. Carol, feel free to chime in at any time. There's the Millennium Falcon, a full-size replica of it. You notice they have barriers down here. Well, they found out that they used to let people just walk up and pose for pictures, but people were doing things like getting up to the sections here and pulling chunks of it off to take home. So now they have a barrier around it to keep you out.
Damn.
Sorry, Joey?
I just said damn.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, you build something, you try to do something nice, and then people come and just say, "Oh, I'll just take pieces of it home with me."
Yeah, I guess they figure you have more Nernies and Greeblies in the back room or something. They
Yeah,
just put them back on.
It but it was
Yeah, I would never do that. I would never do that, and I think I see people doing that a lot at certain places we have around here, historical villages and stuff, and they just take it and run.
yeah,
You know.
it's crazy. So there's two new Star Wars rides in there. The first one, the main big one, was down for all morning long, so we kept watching it on the app. I was telling people in advance I was really not looking forward to the app. We have to, make reservations for this, reservations for that. Well, we never had to get the Genie Pass. We never had to buy the Lightning Lane or do anything. It was basically get there, walk in, and have a good time. So we're here at the first part of the ride. This is where you go in and pilot the Millennium Falcon. So you get to walk through it. And it's if you're a Star Wars fan, you've not been on it, it's a real kick. They give you a pre-flight briefing on this particular thing. I was the pilot and Weston was the co-pilot. And if you're a Star Wars fan, and when they say, okay, go to light speed, and you reach out and you pull the lever down and you go to light speed, it's just a real kick. So I really enjoyed it. I got a real kick out of it. I will say that Weston put a few dents in the spaceship. It wasn't me, it was all him, but we had a real good time doing it. So my crew survived. They had a good time, and then we were off to see more. Exit queue going out. And this is Olga's Cantina. Again, a very popular spot. You have to have reservations for it, but this is how light the morning was. We were able to walk up to it, said, hi, how soon before we can come back? And I said, how would 20 minutes work for you? So we ran next door, went on the ride, came out, and walked right in. So if you, again, a fan of Star Wars and you have the whole cantina scene, it's fun to go into. They have some very strange drinks. One that Margot and Weston got that numbs your tongue and your lips and stuff. So they had fun with it. So we were celebrating the day. I figure be tourists and act like tourists and have a good time. Robot DJ, enjoying our drinks there in the morning. And again, just some random shots of graphics and stuff. I have no idea what this is telling me. I'm sure the Star Wars fans out there can decode it and tell me what it says and everything. But to me, it was just a quick look at it and get on the way. Again, look at the size and the scope of this whole area they built there. Giant TIE fighter out there. Then we went back to see more of the rest of Disneyland. Again, the big ride was down, so we were watching that all morning. So let's go see some of the other stuff. The Golden Horseshoe. Last time I said we were in the park, I was speaking there, so it was kind of fun. And then it's interesting. There's this petrified tree out by the river, and we stopped to take a picture. And Carol mentioned she's been to Disneyland probably, I don't know, 500 times. She had not been aware of the tree and the fact that Walt had bought it, given it to his wife as a wedding present, and or anniversary present, and she didn't know what to do with it, so they gave it to Disneyland. So Carol knows I like to surprise her with things, and maybe in the future she's going to get a petrified tree. More of the street performers. Again, you can look here. There is no line whatsoever for Pirates. Later in the afternoon, there was probably about a 40-minute wait or something, but this was just come on, walk in and have a good time. Our trusty Jungle Cruise skipper took us out, and she had one joke that I think she must have used 18 times, and by the time we were at the end of the thing, I think we're ready to pay her not to say it the 19th time. But just fun out there watching the animals. Kids get traumatized, so they have to talk about how the lions are protecting the sleeping zebra. The Trop Safari, been redone now to be more of a ethnically balanced mix. Then they had something new. This is where they used to have the Tahitian terrace, and they now had a strawberry Dole Whip. We had been talking about Dole Whip, Dole Whip, Dole Whip, and Weston had not been to Disneyland since he was 8. So he was looking forward to getting a Dole Whip, and then he was traumatized. Does he get the traditional or the strawberry? So we figured, well, we could get a couple of each, and he went the pineapple route. I had this, I went off my diet severely that day, but it was great fun. So if you go to Disneyland, they have strawberry Dole Whip. I will leave it up to you which of the 2 Dole Whips you get. And the newlyweds enjoying themselves. Then we went over to see Star Tours. Again, Weston, a big fan of it. He had not seen it. The ladies decided that they had seen it enough and they didn't like to get bounced around. So they went off and toured some of the rest of the park. But we went in, we were in our total geek out mode. Then I told everybody we had lunch reservations at the Blue Bayou. Because I didn't want them to eat. I said, we'll just have a snack, we'll have the other stuff. But we'll go by the Blue Bayou at 2 o'clock when we had a reservation. So when we went through Pirates, I told them, I said, okay, when we get here at 2 o'clock, please ask real nicely if we can get a table down by the water, and you'll see the fireflies and everything. So about 5 to 2, as we were walking over to go to Blue Bayou, I said, let's stop and take a picture outside Club 33, which people may know it's a private member club in Disneyland. So we posed for the picture, and then I said to Weston, hey, do me a favor, push the button on the intercom there and see what happens. And he goes, why? What are they going to do to me? I said, just push it and see what happens. So he said, he pushed the button. They said, yes, can we help you? And I leaned over and said, Cotter party of 4. And thanks to a very, very, very generous friend, we were now inside the Club 33. And you can see Carol is reacting. What did you do? How did you do this? And what is coming next? So it was funny. She walked in and the receptionist was there and said, welcome. And Carol said, I thought we were going to the Blue Bayou. I don't know what's going on. And they said, well, if you want, we can get you in over there instead. So she got quickly outvoted and we stayed at Club 33. So they have it all. This is the Court of the Angels, the stairway going up. Used to be open to the public. Now it's inside the doorway, and they have it decorated for a tropical motif special overlay done this time of year. So off we go, all obligatory pictures. Carol is still reacting to sitting here at a table. They gave us a very nice private table because we had said that it was a celebration of the wedding that had just occurred. So again, she's a little surprised, but it was great. It was really a wonderful meal. This is the menu that you get there, a little bit of a introduction to the menu. And if you want to see what's your possibilities are to eat, it's a 4-course meal. Carol had the ahi to start with. I had the braised beef hand pie. It was really good. 3 of us went for the prime New York steak, and Carol had the shrimp. And I will say that I am a steak lover, and it was one of the top 2, top 3 steaks I've ever had anywhere in the world. It was really, really good. Then we got to the tough part. What do you pick for desserts? So what do you do? The cover of the menu, the little beef pie that I had. I was playing a foodie here, sending pictures back to our son who was not able to make it. One of the nice things is when you're waiting for your meal, you can go outside on the balcony and look down over the rivers of America. What was interesting, Margot went out and she came back when she was sort of disappointed that people weren't noticing she was up there. I think she was ready to do the royal, princess wave or anything, but everybody's down below keeping, their eyes on what's going on around them, and they really don't notice that you're up there on the balcony. But nice views up there. Next door, this is the Cafe Orleans, which is being rebuilt into Princess Tatiana's. I think it's how it's pronounced. Restaurant from the Princess and the Frog, just more views of New Orleans.
Bill, that's by a friend of ours, Dennis Tanita.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Yep, absolutely. So we're seeing some of the work going on. The little alcove we had, enjoying our meal. Another pop back outside. Oh, dessert was so good. Again, I don't know if that's gold carrot foil or whatever, but whatever, it all tasted real good. Then we left there. I had other pictures of Club 33, but they did not ask you to show pictures that have other members in them, so it was a great spot. Then we went over to see the main Star Wars attraction, which is really monumental. Having worked at Imagineering and things that we thought we were doing cutting art. Well, they were cutting art back in the 70s and 80s, but when you see what they're able to do now with the trackless vehicles that go and race you around through this thing, and the size of the set pieces that you go through are just astonishing. But you go in one room, you're on a ship that the door closes, the ship takes off, you get attacked, get grabbed by the Alliance, open the door, you're in a totally different building than you left in. You walk out and these guys are all waiting to take you prisoner. They break you into small groups for interrogation. The rebels come and break you out of your cell, and off you go on a hell of an adventure. Really, really well done. Now we had a great day. At the end of it, it was like, well, we need to get something to eat. And at the wedding, there had been a big joke about corn dogs. So I sent this picture to Margot and Weston. We had split up at this point in time. And I said, one place I am not going to eat is corn dogs. So after the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful meal at Club 33, we decided we would just eat a piece of pizza and head home. Well, the next day, we were off to Disney Studios. Most folks on the call probably know it. Both Carol and I worked for Disney. Carol started in 1975. I started in 1976 and worked at the studio. I was there 6 years full-time, and Carol was there about 18, between the studio, Imagineering, Disney Channel, that sort of thing. But I got a kick out of this. This is outside what's called the Zorro parking structure. It's where the Zorro sets used to be, and I figure everybody else has, clean up after your pet signs, but how many of them have a cute Mickey and Pluto sign? So again, kind of a gray, gloomy day. It was a great day for walking around. When I worked there, the studio did not have the water tower painted. It was just empty, white sides on it. And I asked one day why they did that, and they said because too many people would see it, pull up and ask, thinking they were at Disneyland, or asking directions to how to get to Disneyland. So that water tower is not used anymore. There's one at Warner Brothers. It's also not used anymore. But back in the 30s, 39, 40 era, when they built the studio, the water pressure in Burbank was very low, and all the studios put in water towers back then. So they had the water there needed to fight fires if necessary, not just for the use of the studio, but fire suppression being a major thing. So a lot of this stuff is all changed from when we worked there. Over here, there used to be a lake, a lagoon. If you go watch the movie, Lieutenant Robin Crusoe, and he's in this tropical island and all this stuff going on with these natives and everything, all shot there in beautiful downtown Burbank. So we're walking through the studio. We'll come back to some of the stages later. Over here used to be a building, the Mill Building. That's where they built all the dinosaurs for the Ford exhibit at the 64 World's Fair. They turned out all sorts of stuff. These stages were very instrumental in the building of Disneyland. For example, they built the hull of the Mark Twain at a shipyard in Long Beach. They built the superstructure on stage 3, and then they put on trucks, and they put them together for the first time when it was down at Disneyland. In the background is the Capitol ABC television building. When Carol and I worked there, this was an area that was used for storing studio cars. You might go out there one day and find 20 Herbie the Love Bugs parked out there. At one time, we found the car from the Absent-Minded Professor, all sorts of stuff sitting out on that. Now the new animation building is out there, and the head of ABC TV. They have a map here, where you are, just going around, walking around the studio. Some of these buildings are original, built in 1939, 40. Others have had additions put onto them, and some of them are totally new. So we got to the Disney Archives. It's in the Frank Wells building. The Frank Wells building is on, again, what used to be the town square. If you watch any old Disney movie and you have the Merlin Jones driving around the town, that was all on my office in the Ink and Paint building looked out on it. The last thing that they built it for, they rebuilt it when I was there for Something Wicked This Way Comes. And it was really great to be able to, just look out the window, watch them shooting. And then one day they realized that our faces could be seen in the window. So they had to put a temporary structure up to block the view of us gawkers all watching the movie. This, though, is one of the multi-plane cameras. When I worked at Disney, it was still very much off limits. Just showing how things had changed. It was in the camera building, but it was in a locked room and you weren't supposed to go there because it was still being used for motion picture production. This one they put together from bits and pieces of multi-planes. There's also one up at the Disney Family Museum up in San Francisco. But basically the way this worked was you had several layers, and it's in what's called multi-plane. Camera up here. You could put pieces of glass with artwork at various levels, a background down here. And they would show how you would take a painted background, the characters on another level, the painted background. This wouldn't be a background. This would be the intermediate plane on a piece of very fine, optically pure glass. So when you put it all together, you get this scene. But what's really nice is you can give it the feeling of 3-dimension because they can crank this particular piece with the building roof on it at a different speed and make it go up or down. And you can get the feeling that the camera is actually zooming in past the figures, and it gave it a real feeling of depth. So it was a tremendous advance for the animation industry when they came up with it. And here's a picture of it in use at the original Hyperion Studios. All these hoses here are air conditioning hoses because you have so many lights on it that if you don't have the air conditioning hoses, the artwork would start to bubble, warp, that sort of thing. It's a very intricate item. It's got a patent on it. Again, you can see the patent level here, air conditioning ducts going in, levels of the various artwork, the camera system going in. But it really, if you ever go see the short, The Old Mill, which I think is on Disney Plus right now, great example of the first use of the multiplane of how it gave a feeling of depth. Again, another shot of the artwork here. Then it was inside to go see the Disney Archives, and this was great fun. They had a big, they changed the displays periodically. The last time we were there, they had a big thing about Pirates of the Caribbean. This particular time, they had a big display about Snow White there. So Snow White from all different realms of the company. So here for the premiere at the Fox Cathay Circle, different pictures they had from events. Snow White costume you'd see down at Disneyland. And just these are figures that came out of one of the Snow White rides. I think this was out of the Disney World one, if I remember right. Up on the wall, they have a really nice timeline of the founding of the company. Again, 1923, the Walt Disney Company is founded. So we're at the Disney 100 coming up. And I think today we're 99 days away from the 100th anniversary of it. So we went through the archives. Again, they changed the displays out periodically. So all figures from the original release of Snow White. Then they have the research area. The woman here is doing research. She's also the voice of California Adventure. So all the announcements and everything you hear in California Adventure. Her husband is the voice of Disneyland. She's the voice of California Adventure. And she's here doing research and a book on Disney cartoon voices. So you can come and take a tour of the studio if you're a D23 member. You can sign up for a tour of Walt's office and the Disney Archives, but you don't get to go and see some of the things that we're going to get to go see today. They keep you behind the ropes. Various display items, the different things in the Walt Disney history. Again, real ancient things up here. Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf Clock? Down below now reflecting that Disney owns ABC and 20th Century Fox. They have the games that they've accumulated from General Hospital, different action figures from Star Wars and things like that. Hidden in the background there is one of my little favorites, the orange bird. I'm looking at mine exact copy of it sitting here that Carol was nice to give me for Christmas. And again, these are original figures that came out of the attraction. And signed that came off it. Then the archivist, Becky Klein, the archivist, was out that day, but she had one of her staff come in and give us a really nice special tour of both of the archives and of the Disney office suite. So she brought these out. There are 2 tickets for Disneyland for the first day. One's at 6 p.m., one's at 2:30. And they were different things they were doing for the press previews and getting everybody into the park. On the back was a map telling people how to get there, because most people had no idea where Disneyland was, where Anaheim was, anything like that. So this is kind of fun. If you look at it, the highway system has changed dramatically. I can zoom in here just a little bit. So if you were driving down to Anaheim at that particular day, hey, there's no Interstate 5. There's no 405. As a matter of fact, there are no interstates. So getting down to Anaheim at that particular day was going to be quite a drive down here. You have the Santa Ana Freeway, the 101, and the numbers have changed and everything has moved all over. But you had to allow several hours to get down to Disneyland. Now with the brilliance of our freeway system and everything, you still have to allow several hours to get down to Disneyland. They also had parking passes. The special thing, if you were able to get to come into the preview, stick on your windshield and come on in. Some of the things that they would, again, demonstrate: special main gate admission for going to Disneyland. And how much is it to get to Disneyland? Everybody check the price. 50 cents. And this ticket book was issued December 15th, 1955. Now she's bringing out one of the Holy Grails. People have probably seen various pictures of this, but it's the first ticket sold for Disneyland. This was bought by Roy Disney, and he kept it for years and years and years, and then it's now in the archives. But ticket 00001 and adult $1 admission to go in. In this particular case, it was sold by a machine, just like if you might remember going to a movie theater. Ancient times, you would go up, buy your ticket, they'd push a button and a ticket would pop out of a machine, and you'd go on in. That's what the hole is for. Some people thought it was being voided. No, it's so the machine could issue it. But again, quite a piece of Disney history there. Well, the 2, by the way, means it was at ticket booth number 2. Then they also are very good today. The ticket up here, I think, is a closer one. They get the first ticket to every of the Disney parks. So this is the first ticket sold to the Disney Shanghai Resort. So it's kind of interesting how things come full circle. The first Disneyland ticket, Disney Shanghai ticket, and they've got the others in between. One of the neat things about visiting is they let you pose with an Oscar. Years ago, I took a picture of me with an Oscar and I put it on Facebook as my Facebook picture, and I had somebody writing, "Oh, I didn't know you won an Oscar. What did you get it for?" So you can at least pretend. You can also, at this particular point, I was getting ready to run like hell for the door and see if they could stop me. So, but I figured it was probably a better thing not to wear out my welcome. But we had fun posing for our Oscar pictures. There's Carol with the obligatory Oscar. We'll see more close-up detail of the Oscar in a minute. And there he is. It's the Oscar Walt won for White Wilderness. Walt Disney still holds the records for the most Oscars won by any single individual. I think behind him was Edith Head, the costume designer that was so big at Universal and other studios. But this Oscar, everybody wants to hold an Oscar. So the Disney studio years ago decided that this would be the one they would let people hold. And at one point years ago, they had to send it out to be replated. They were getting ready to replate it again, and COVID hit, and they haven't redone it. But it's really heavy. It's a friend of mine has won Oscars, and you go to his house, and it's very impressive. He's got Oscars and Emmys up over the fireplace, and man, they do weigh a ton. They really do. And then they have birthday portraits of Mickey hanging on the walls. These are the originals. John Hench over here did a picture of Mickey. I think this was Mickey when he was 25 years old. Over the years, he snuck, when Mickey turned 50, he snuck some gray into to Mickey, which I think all of us who have turned gray can relate to it. This was a nice display they did about Dave Smith. Dave was the man who founded the Disney Archives. He was a personal friend of Carol and I, and they put this together. Carol and I used to go with Dave to swap meets. The Disney studio had not kept a lot of stuff. Like, you know, many companies did. Somebody thought somebody else had it, or there was no value in it. So Dave was going around trying to buy merchandise and stuff back to the archives. And people would recognize him. So when he'd walk up to say a booth at the Rose Bowl swap meet, he'd say, "How much for something?" And they'd say, $500. And Dave would say, no way I can do that. That's forget it. And Carol and I would walk up a few minutes later and say, "How much?" And they'd say, "Oh, it's $110." And we'd buy it and then give it to Dave, and he would give us the money back. Well, that worked well for about 2 years, until one day we were at a swap meet and we walked up to somebody and they pointed and said, "I figured it out. Every time Dave Smith's here, you're here 5 minutes later." So they blew our cover, but we were his phantom buyers for a number of things in the archives. Margot with her Oscar. Weston's having fun. Just flip through these. Then they have various displays, as I mentioned, they rotate. This was one that Margot got a real kick out of, the book from Hocus Pocus. You know, when the movie first came out, it wasn't much of a hit and it became a cult favorite. I can safely say it is required viewing in the Cotter family every year as we get near Halloween. They were disappointed the eye didn't open on the book and look at them. Next to it, you got book from Princess Bride. Not Princess Bride, Princess Diaries, sorry. And one of my favorite, the book from Bedknobs and Broomsticks. So you have all sorts of Disney history, screen use props for these things. Different displays again that they put together for, again, it's part of, you know, Dave Smith's nameplate and his name tag, and how he spent all his time preserving the company's magic. You could spend all sorts of time looking at the displays, and what's really, really nice, there were even more of them out in the lobby. They were all over the place. So what's really nice is every time you go back, there's likely to be a different set of them. Then we left the archives. We took a quick hop over to the animation building. On the way, this is the Team Disney building. Down here is called Legends Plaza, where there's people's handprints and plaques and that sort of thing for the Disney Legends. And then up top here is the Rotunda restaurant. And then the Seven Dwarfs all holding up the building. This was built under the Eisner days. This used to be the site of a softball court, and there was a wooded, not really wooded, a treed area, a berm that all of a sudden they would bring in potted trees, supplant the few that were out there, and they could make it hang Spanish moss from it, and it'd be a Louisiana bayou for like the Treasure of Matacumbe movie. So that was one of the neat things working about Disney, was it was always different stuff all over the place. Now we're getting the tour upstairs on, this is called Suite 3H. It was Walt Disney's suite of offices, and when he died, it was locked up and kept basically under lock and key for years and years. Dave Smith was hired to come in and do an inventory of the office, and he did an amazing job photographing it from every possible angle and writing down everything that was there, and went through it. And then when he finished, it sat there again locked until a number of years went by, and they just said, "This is very expensive real estate. We need to use it for executives." Ron Miller, who was the Walt's son-in-law, moved in. A number of different people had it. So I was in those offices when I worked for Disney, but it was never in Walt Disney's configuration. So when I went and saw this, Carol and I were back there about 6 years ago when they had just rebuilt the offices. We'd seen it on display down at Disneyland that they had at the Reagan Library, where Carol was one of the tour guides. but to actually be there walking in Walt's office was a real kick. This is our friend Leslie, who's I believe has joined us on the call today, joined us for the tour. So I have, I had so many pictures. I had, just say in advance, I had Carol's picture, sorry, my camera, Carol's camera, Margot's camera, and Leslie's camera. So if I do have, I try to take out the duplicates, but if we do see the same thing twice, I will apologize. So we're going on in. All sorts of pictures lining the wall of, you know, Walt up in his office, famous visitors that came to the office. Here he's pretending he's playing the piano. He was not a piano player, but good for a photo op. And all the little figures out here that the model shop would make for the animators. So like this is Baby Weems here. They would actually make a 3D model of Baby Weems. So an animator could rotate it and say, how would he look from the side? How would he look from the back? They would make maybe half a dozen of these figures, paint them all up, and give them out to the animators that were working in that particular movie. At the end, they were supposed to give them back. Sometimes people kept them. A few of them escaped onto the collector's market. Torch from the 1960 Winter Olympics. Walt was the guy that did all the opening and closing pageantry from it. So one of the things that that was donated was the sort of the torch that the runner came in to light the Olympic flame. We're going to see more about the Olympics as we go on. Then we're into the beginning part of the exhibit. Basically, Walt had several secretaries. He had more than one office. We'll see each of those. And they did a very nice display here about how Walt moved out to the studio in Burbank. He had the Hyperion studio where Snow White was made, and then the profits from Snow White let him build his dream studio out in Burbank between 1939 and 1940. He also had furniture commission. We'll see more of this. A fellow named Kim Weber. There's a very good book out on Kim Weber's work that he did for the studio. Little couch that could be made into a bed. So if Walt decided he didn't want to go home that night, he was working too late, he could stay. Even little things like the clock, everything custom made and designed for this studio. Award that Walt got. I don't know if it shows up on the plaque here in the picture. 1 second. No, this was a group that was given to him. Again, you can see a medical symbol here. It's a group that I'm trying to remember the exact name of it. Thalians, I think it is. But basically people, you know, with the two faces of, you know, the drama and comedy sort of thing, and Goofy being the symbol for us, they made him the special award. They have given Walt literally thousands of awards. When the archives used to be in the Roy Disney building, the Roy O. Disney building, down in the basement, they had a very small reading room and research library upstairs, and down in the basement of it was basically 1/3 of the archives, 1/3 a storage room for the record company, which Tom Brooks would have loved to have gone down there, and 1/3 of it for the studio print shop. And lining the walls all over the place were ward after ward after ward down in the archives. And they had a little map they had made of where they were on the wall, because you can imagine if you had 2,000 of these things on the wall, and somebody comes in and says, oh, my group, the National Association of Amusement Parks, Pools, and Beaches, gave Ward and a Walt. Do you still have it? They could look on the chart. Yeah, that's number 275 and go find it. But this is just the various odds and ends that they stuck up there. Original artwork from a brochure. Something, again, some of these may repeat. I have a closer up thing. This was for United Airlines tie-in. We're going to be going into his office now, taking the tour. So when you get in here, this is his secretary's area. Secretary's desk back here. There would have been another one out here. They have a display here, a screen that goes and shows you, you know, how the studio is built, and about how they recreated it. Because again, everything came out of here and was put into storage and used Ron Miller's office. Some of the awards that he's won, again, many of them, and different things he picked up over the years. You know, they're still saying they have no idea for all the things he was gotten, why he decided to put some of them in his office and others in, you know, went into storage. So here's some boomerangs down here. All these, again, you have Emmys up here. These are all originals other than this one up here, which we'll see a closer view of. Again, we're flipping our way through things. there's that artwork I mentioned, and again, the original artwork for this United Airlines brochure. Cover for Time magazine. Great picture of Walt with all his characters and everything. This is a replica. This was a special award, special Oscar that Walt was given for the making of Snow White. It did not win an award because people at that point didn't give awards to cartoons, but they made this special Oscar with several Oscars representing the Seven Dwarfs. The Disney Family Museum has the original up in San Francisco. This is a prop made for the movie Saving Mr. Banks. So although it's not an original Oscar, it's an original prop. So they were able to keep that there. Again, all sorts of awards. We can zoom in on some of them. Anaheim's Halloween Festival Pageant, 1954. So in 1954, Disneyland's still coming. They're aware of what's being built down there, and they were already saying thanks to their new tenant coming to town. All sorts of different Oscars. Again, the family has some, the studio has some. It's amazing to think about all the things that this man did and all the awards that he won, rightfully so that he won them. Again, nobody's going to top him. Nobody's going to get the number of Oscars that he's gotten. This was a plaque they gave out to everybody who worked at Disneyland for 10 years. And since Walt had been there for 10 years, he got his own centennial plaque. And then you can see other things here, an award for Little League, a crown from some organization, just all sorts of stuff. 17 magazine, all these, coins, medallions, all sorts of things. So here's the secretary's desk. You can imagine gatekeeper to the man. One of the presentations I did a while back was about things I found while looking for something else. And it was stuff that was donated by his secretaries to Cal Arts. But they had to be the ones to answer the phone, tell you that Walt was busy, not busy, that sort of thing. And then sitting out here, they would let you in if you had an appointment to see the man. So again, original desks, all these custom designed desks for the studio. Here's Leslie taking a picture. Nice. So what's happening is I'm over here taking pictures of the desk. Leslie's over here taking pictures of the awards. They're all in chronological order, so sometimes we kind of bounce back and forth. But here's a typical day in Walt's calendar. We'll zoom in here and see that he's going to the Marlboro Grand Breaking Ceremony, and not sure what that is, but they're going to have coffee with Mr. and Mrs. Perkins at 3:45, and then the ceremonies. So if anybody happens to know where Marlboro was. And then over the next day, he's working on the Cal Arts brochure. Cal Arts was a pet project of Walt's to provide a school to train animators and other artists. And they left a tremendous amount of money to the foundation. And they were, sorry, somebody's, if you don't know, you're not muted. Thanks. So again, here's all the people he's meeting this particular day. Down here, 4 o'clock, he's got 27 minutes of dailies. If you don't know what dailies are, it's all the film that was shot the prior day. You can come in and look at it and decide liked it, didn't like it, go reshoot it. The actor blinked when he wasn't supposed to. They might be looking at animation dailies, scenes running too short, too long, whatever. But they would go into what they would call the sweat boxes, the small screening rooms all up and down the 3rd floor of the studio. And you joke with people, and so when the studio, we'll see in a sign coming up, it was a big thing they made about it being the first really fully air-conditioned studio. And so with the air conditioning didn't work in the sweat boxes. And I said, oh no, the air conditioning could be great, but when you were out in it with Walt and he's criticizing your work, you're going to be sweating. So he is in one of his offices. Here he is. Let's see if we can pick up this particular one. Walt dreams of dinosaurs in a screening room with Igor Stravinsky, composer of The Rite of Spring, during the development of Fantasia. So they're up there. You can see on the back all these openings for projectors, because they have different size projectors, 16 millimeter, 35 millimeters, that sort of thing. And then when you're doing a feature, you may start in this projector, and at the real change, go to this projector. So just a typical screening room. And now we're into what's called his formal office. This is where he would entertain visitors, the VIPs, that sort of thing would come in, and he had pictures of his two daughters up here, and I believe these, I forget if these were done by Norman Rockwell, and the originals are up at the family. He had, we'll see more of these miniatures and everything close up. Somebody asked to comment about, was his office always this neat? And they said no. At the end of the day, his secretaries would come in and restore order to chaos, because he would be pulling papers out, books out, scribbling notes, doing all sorts of things, both here and in his working office. And at the end of the day, they would clean it up. Well, at the end of his final day at the studio, he didn't know it was his final day at the studio. He went home for the night, as always. The secretaries cleaned up everything, as always. And then, unfortunately, when he passed away at St. Joseph's Hospital, the next morning, this empty office was waiting for him that he was not able to come back to. So, you know, it's amazing when you get to think about, you know, you look at that chair and you think about all the stuff that the guy that sat in that chair did, the theme parks, the cartoons, the features, you know, the technical innovations. And again, he didn't invent the multi-plane camera. His technicians did, but he had the foresight to see, you know, what this thing could do, funded it, encouraged it, perfected it. You know, they kept always pushing the wheel, you know, forward to get these things done. So, you know, for me, oh, his daughter's baby shoes had bronze down here as a set of bookends. It's just, wow. You know, to me, I really felt there's a visible aura of going in there. This is looking from the other side of the office over to a piano. The Sherman brothers would talk about at the end of the day. Walt would come up and ask him to you know, stop by the office. The nurse, Hazel George, would fix Walt a drink, give him a massage, rub his shoulders, and he had a polo injury that bedeviled him forever. But the Sherman brothers would come in and play his favorite song, Feed the Birds, and play it on this very piano. It's also the piano where they demonstrated, hey, here's some of the music that we'd like to do for Mary Poppins, or The Happiest Millionaire, or for, you know, Jungle Book, or any of the things that they worked on. So lots of history made at that particular piano. His office has all sorts of knickknacks. On this left side is a model of a Gulfstream jet. Walt had a Gulfstream prop plane. We'll see more of that. And he was getting a jet when he died. They never did get it. But the bell here was from Men Against the Arctic, a bell off a Coast Guard cutter. I mean, you think about all the things the guy had, you know, and people giving him stuff every single day, people mailing his stuff to the guy, you know, to keep a bell from a Coast Guard cutter on his desk. I always like to know if he just rang the bell to get his secretaries to come in or not. So, little couch over in the side of the studio. Almost everything in here is real. This couch was a reproduction. When they took the studio, the office apart and sent it down to Disneyland for a display, this was sent off to a warehouse and it got lost somewhere over the way. So they had to recreate the couch out of, you know, studio photographs. Again, looking back up at the desk area, and have a silly little figure up here, you know, all the stuff he had. Why did he have some of it?
Bill, it's funny. It looks more like a fandom, like fans' office, more than a movie mogul's office.
Yeah, we'll get into the next one where he did most of the actual work. But yeah, and again, this was his formal office for presentations. Up to the day he died, he had special fondness for Annette Funicello, and here's a piece of music that the Sherman brothers wrote for her, and up in the piano. And then Babes in Toyland was a big one that obviously Annette starred in. But then why did he have the music for a blue poke bonnet and a stovepipe hat? You know, I mean, it'd be wonderful to go back and ask him just to explain some of this stuff to you. Looking out the window of the studio. And in his bookcase, all sorts of books on there. The whole history here of the American battle for World War II. copy of the book The Biscuit Eater, odds and ends. So some of them that he made into movies, others that they were signed autographed copies by different authors. But he got books sent to him literally by the hundreds. They just came because everybody wanted their book made into a Disney movie. And why he picked the ones he picked and how he picked them is a good question. And how much he read some of them, you don't know. But again, if you've got, say, if somebody gives you 5,000 books and you pick 1,000 to put on display, something made those books special. Dave Smith, again, photographed every single one of these things. As a fellow named Ed Orvalier at the archives has made a real thing of helping restore Walt's office, making sure that every book is in exactly the same spot that it was, and taking Walt's original pictures and going through and trying to figure out exactly where things were. And, not just put the book here, but if this one's open to this side and this one's open to that side, get them as exactly as you can. So it's really an amazing time capsule. And again, more of the books and all sorts of different little tchotchkes and things that he got over the years. Kind of a panoramic view looking back. He would, again, get up from his chair, when he's entertaining you, come over, sit in this chair, he's over on the couch and be with the great man. When we were there the first time, they were still doing the office, and the carpet was just in. They hadn't put this plastic mat yet, but it was full of ladders and paint buckets and everything. So this is the first time we've seen it in its pristine condition here now. Looks like Lady from Lady and the Tramp over here. He has a number of dog things in the office there. He had a dog that looked like this himself. Family pictures of the two daughters. And we're all happily taking shots left and right. This bird up here in the background, we'll see a very blurry picture of it coming up, but this is real super duper important for the history of the Walt Disney Company. Walt was on a tour and a vacation, and he saw this mechanical bird that you could wind it up, and it chirped and it flapped its wings and it opened and shut its beak in the time of the chirping. And he was absolutely enthralled by it, took it back to the studio, gave it to his technicians, told them to figure out how to make it work, because he wanted to make mechanical figures like Project Little Man, the dancing figure with Buddy Ebsen, that became audio animatronics. So the next time you're at the Pirates of the Caribbean and the people, where be the gold? Well, all that sort of stuff traces itself back to this little tiny bird hanging in Walt's office.
Bill, what is the train bell from? Do you know?
This isn't a train bell. It's from what you call a Coast Guard cutter. If we zoom on it, it's here, Greenland cruiser, United States Coast Guard, something class icebreakers, and it was given to Walt Disney in appreciation for his excellent movie Men Against the Arctic. Does look like a train bell though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was off like one of the mine trains, but that's really cool.
Yeah, it's like I said, neat stuff that he had. Oh, they went to the point, by the way, we'll see a close thing of the pencil jar. Dave actually photographed all the pencils, and when they took it out, they put it all in an envelope and they put all the pencils back where they were. I mean, they really went all out. Another lady down here. Walt collected miniatures. He had first, when he was thinking about doing a Disneyland, he was trying to figure out how to do a miniature village. He had a thing where he built a Granny Kincaid's cabin, I think we would call it, something like that. He liked to buy, and he liked to also build miniatures as a form of stress relief. So he had hundreds and hundreds of things, because once of course, if you knew Walt, or worked for Walt, what the hell did he give Walt Disney for his birthday? Well, give him a miniature. So he had tons and tons and tons of these things, and these are the ones that were whatever the most important to him that he kept in his office. So all sorts of just fanciful little figures. And looking back around the office, excuse me. This was a Mousker. They had the Oscars that we've seen. Walt decided he would give special Mouskers to people that had done special work for the studio. So he had this made up and would give it out. And then one day, this one is to Walt in appreciation, and this was given to him by his brother Roy. The two brothers had a contentious relationship at times because Walt liked spending money, Roy liked saving and making money. And at times they would get into points where they would only communicate through emails or messages through their secretaries. But Roy and decided to patch it up, give Walt a gift, and the two of them, they had a great relationship. I mean, you know, like I said, tumultuous, but certainly very fruitful. I've often said that Roy Disney was an absolute genius. If he wasn't there to make the money, protect the company, contract-wise and everything else, Walt probably would have spent it into the ground with his dream of always pursuing the next big, you know, innovation. So they were a tremendous team that worked really well together. And as you go to any of the theme parks, you know, it's not just Walt's mark on them, it's the two brothers. The jet they were in negotiations to get. Another thing of the bell. Like I said, we had multiple people taking pictures, so I'm just going to zip through these kind of quick. Some of these things, I have no idea what this is, what it represents. They could tell you it's a catalog down here. You can see it here on whatever it is. Let's see if we can pick it up any. The gyroscope. So why he had this particular gyroscope or who gave it to him? Again, the archives probably knows. There's Roy. No, that's not sorry. That's not Roy. I'm not sure that who's with him. It looked like Roy at first. Just flip through these. There's the mechanical bird. Just zoomed in a bit. So we thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Bird, for the inspirations. Different things that are some of the books that are sitting there in the shelf. You know, some of them are the Pied Piper. We certainly know he made a cartoon of that. What he was doing with a book on San Diego. Interesting conjecture. Then we all pose for an obligatory picture on our way out. Give you an idea of the size of the office. Again, he could sit here in this chair. The Sherman brothers be playing Feed the Birds. You know, you can just imagine, you know, the memories that, you know, the Shermans carried away from there. I know Dick still talks about it. There's Leslie joining us. We were glad to have her join us for the day. And then we went over to the commissary. We'll see more of that. Had an obligatory Mickey bar ice cream. The woman from the archives was really, really great. She took so many pictures. So like of this shot, I think she took like 14 of her. So Leslie's really big into selfies. So I guess this is an update because it's not just one of us, but we were having a great time. Again, different odds and ends on, you know, as we're walking from his formal office into his working office, this is sitting there, kind of reminding me of the Mr. Toad cars. Now we go into the working office. This is one where he spent more of the time. This is a bulletin board up on the wall of things that they were doing and changing for Disneyland. And over here we have one of the early site layouts for Disney World. So if we zoom in on this a bit, you can see it was the original outline of what it was supposed to be. Airport, different city of the future. This was the original version for Epcot with a tall tower in the center, radials going out. The lake configuration is totally different. There's no Seven Seas Lagoon. Here's Bay Lake. Here's the Magic Kingdom. So all of us that worked at Disney World, this was very, very early on in the design. Disneyland, as it was at the time of Walt's passing, the Haunted Mansion. Again, if we zoom in here, the Haunted Mansion, everybody on the call probably knows it, but just in case you don't, you go in through the Haunted Mansion, the stretching room, you know, as your cadaver's power portrays your foreboding, you're going down an escalator or elevator rather, you go out into a building which doesn't exist in this picture, but all the Haunted Mansion is actually back here. Here is the building of New Orleans Square and Pirates of the Caribbean going in, giant hole dug for that. And again, there you go through there and you can see a opening here. This is where the Pirates building got built out in the back. And as you go through the park, through it, we have Walt's plane. We'll see more of that. But again, what's coming, the future home of 1001 Ghosts, that's since been changed. There's 999, but there's always room for one more. New Orleans Square is going to have fine shops, restaurants, and the Pirates of the Caribbean. Over here, these are things that the yellow stuff was stuff that was going to come. And here's things that have just gone in. So we've now had the Tiki Birds, where birds sing words and tikis talk. Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, now open from the World's Fair. Again, inside his office here, visitors would come and sit while he'd be sitting and chatting with them. And this is his working desk. This is where he would actually get most of his work done. All sorts of scripts and projects that he was working on. He was really big for, he would take scripts home. We'll see that bag in a minute. And he would write on them with a red grease pencil or his notes, like this, hate this, move this up, change this back here, that sort of thing. So here's his bag, well-worn satchel. He'd fill it up, take it home, come in the morning, dump it out, and his secretaries would have to go through and figure out what notes went to what person to fix what problem Walt had seen. Again,
Bill, what is really sad is that there are 3 ashtrays on that desk.
yeah, that is. That's a very great observation, Glenn. You know, I mean, you keep thinking if he had not smoked, how many more years the man could have lived. And I've mentioned this before. You know, Fess Parker and I were talking one day, and I asked Fess to sign a picture of Walt, or sign a picture of Fess at on location for one of the first Crockett stories. And he said, I've always hated that picture. And I said, well, I loved it. Why? And he goes, because when they were taking that picture, I was looking at Walt Disney standing there watching me, and he had that cigarette in his hand, and I was just watching Walt killing himself. And it was just, you know, to me, it's a wonderful picture. Now I can't see that picture without thinking about it. And yeah, cigarettes everywhere. Thanks for the observation, Glenn. Again, looking
Well,
around.
that's, you know, they always pointed out that in pictures, he's always pointing with 2 fingers because they would airbrush out the cigarette.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was directing traffic at an accident yesterday, and I was directing traffic with 2 fingers, you know, telling people, gotta move, gotta move. And I said, you know, because you go to Disneyland, the tour guides point with 2 fingers. And I was saying to myself, God, I picked up the Disney 2-finger point for traffic.
Hey, Bill, are those the original matchbooks?
Yeah, they are. Matter of fact, I've got a bunch of them in my collection. They would, we had a small shop over at the commissary. You could buy cigarettes, candy, gum, that sort of stuff. And they had these matchbooks. So I've got a bunch of them that I never smoked, but I figured they were pretty cool. I'd pick them up.
Bill, what year did he die?
66.
Oh, 66. Okay.
So this is on his desk, and we'll zoom in here, take a look at it. Claude Walker started in the mailroom of the Disney Studios. He worked his way up to become one of the Walt's right-hand man. When I was there, he was the head of the company. Well, actually, Don Tatum was the chairman of the board, and Card was the chief executive officer. So here's a note he had sent up to Walt with they were tracking, all the studios do this. How are you doing? How are the competitors doing? You know, that sort of thing. So original thing, all worn with time, but this was, you know, just notes. They would give Walt a summary of how things were going. You could see that this patch of blue they thought was going to make $1 million, but was running away. Now it's going to make $7 million. Dr. Zhivago, $10 million. You know, again, these numbers are kind of cute by today's numbers, where everybody's making $38 million in a weekend or something. And you make $38 million a weekend, they tell you it's a failure. But back then, you know, movie tickets were also, you know, I mean, 25 cents or something to go to a movie, not $15 that they were doing today. But just a note here, one of my favorite movies, The Great Race, was bringing in all sorts of bucks. So these are, again, other pages down below, just everything right where it was on his desk in the order it was when he passed away.
I remember Card Walker, whenever you saw his name on anything, it was always E. Carden Walker.
Yeah.
And I asked Dave Smith one time what the E stood for. And he said, I don't know. And so a couple hours later, I got an email that said E equals Esmond.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny. You had to ask Dave. You think Dave might have, wondered at some point in time, but he probably called up Card and asked him.
Yeah, I was surprised he didn't know.
Yeah, I was always surprised that he signed his name with E. Yeah, now I know. Yeah, to me it was always just Card, but there's a model of Walt's Gulfstream. What happens is when you buy a private plane, besides getting a private plane, you get a model of your private plane painted up with the actual markings of your plane. So there's a picture of it in flight, and then the plane, which was flown for years and years, taken to Disney MGM Studios in Florida, put on display, let to rot in the Florida sun. It has since been taken back. It's in a museum in Palm Springs. The exterior has been restored, and they are working on restoring the interior now. We'll see more of the plane coming up, but there's a picture of it in flight. Again, Disneyland at the time. You can see all the shops and everything back here. When we were at Disneyland recently, Carol was asking where, they put in the Star Wars stuff. They shortened some of the river here. They took out some of the shops and everything back here, and so Star Wars Land is out back here now. But again, in this particular thing, it's really changed so much. If you go back with Small World and everything else, there's just all sorts of changes. And we're just hopping around his office here. Again, I don't know if this other sheet makes it any easier to see down below. Yeah, different ideas of what the various movies were making. So all the other stuff that was coming out, the Disney ones are all underlined. So you can see that Old Yeller was out. They estimated it was going to make $2 million. Emil of the Detectives, again, various different ones up here. The numbers are all out of whack compared to today's thing, but Walt was a minor player in the motion picture industry for live action stuff. I mean, obviously Old Yeller, great movie, a real heart, throb and everything, but it didn't, it wasn't making the same money as, say, The Great Race. Again, multiple ones of us taking pictures, so I'm going to hop around. They even got to the point they made sure the push pins are in the same spot on the cork globe that they were. Then he got a duckster. They had both Mouskers and ducksters. I don't know what the differentiation was on who gave, who got a Mousker, who got a duckster. But again, you can see to Walt with personal wishes, Roy, one of the peace offerings. There's the plane. Gulfstream Grumman, no, Grumman Gulfstream rather. His kitchen, we'll see more of that in the back. That was pretty much intact from the days Walt worked there, because none of the other executives really wanted to use it, so they kind of sealed it off, and it's still there. We'll be getting a closer view of that. But just looking around his office, we're going to dive down and look at some of the stuff on his desk in a minute. Again, things that were close to him, probably representing his dog and Lady and the Tramp, obviously Alice in Wonderland. And a tiny little Bambi standing up against one of the things in the background. One of the artist's maquettes, again, of all the ones he could have had, of all the movies he made, you just wonder how much of he saw himself in Pinocchio that was there. And yes, we had Walt Disney Productions matchbooks. That was the original logo used on all the studio trucks and everything else. And we're swinging away around his desk here. Pictures of his daughter, his family. His family is real important to him. There's his dog at home. Up in the background, the last live action movie that he worked on, The Happiest Millionaire, posing on the set. Sorry, mail call. Excuse me 1 second. Just making sure she picked up the mail. So yeah, The Happiest Millionaire, the last movie he worked on. So he's on the set here with Fred McMurray, Greer Garson, Tommy Steele, John Davison. Let's see, it's his name. Charlene Page. So great set, well done on the soundstage there in Burbank. Disney Family Crest, more family pictures. All these scripts and everything. It would be fascinating to go through it and see how many things, that were in production that got made and how they changed, or which ones didn't get made. Intercom here to call his secretaries. They were joking when we were there the original time, how things have changed. We're saying, is that Walt's original phone? No, back in the time when the studio was taken apart, the phones were all owned by the phone company, so you couldn't keep it. You had to give it back to the phone company. So they had to go and get another phone, make it representative. But the number on the dial and everything is correct. Here's some views of Walt's planes. I had the pleasure of flying in this to Disney World. Glenn, did you ever take any trips on it?
Yeah, I was on it several times. I remember the first time I went on, I was one of the first people to get there, and I just went and sat in what I didn't know, but it turned out to be Walt's seat.
Yeah, when we got on it, we were told we could sit anywhere we wanted to, but other than here in Walt's seat. There was a fellow, and I forget his name, Glenn might remember it, that was the company's rock expert. And he would carve, make the rocks of the Matterhorn, or the rocks of the Pirates of the Caribbean, the rocks or whatever. And we were building Epcot at the time, and this guy was so special to the company. He'd come home for a couple of days R&R, but rather than have him drive up to Burbank to fly to Florida with us, we made a trip down to John Wayne Airport and picked him up in Florida, and he got to sit in Walt's seat. So you might think you were high in the pecking order, but nobody was higher in our flight than the Rock Man. But it was
Yeah.
great.
It was
Bill?
a very interesting seat there, because it had custom altimeters with Mickey Mouse hands, and there was a phone you could call the pilot, and it was really fun. But it was a
Bill?
long trip.
Yes.
Bill,
Yeah, Brock.
if you go back one to that shot with the desk seat, I think it was one back. No, I'm sorry, it was one forward. I guess you had that one. Yeah, the one on the left there. That's the one time I flew on the plane. That's the seat I sat at, and that little desk was open like that, or I could have it open. And they brought me a drink. It was just a ginger ale, and I fell asleep during the flight. Well, if you notice, that desk is sloped, make it easier for riding. And I woke up suddenly
Oh no.
to the drink in my lap. It had vibrated down the desk because it was a prop plane and there was a certain amount of vibration there. And what a shocking way to wake up while you're riding on the airplane. And luckily the stewardess was nice enough to help me with some club soda so that I didn't stain, once it dried out. We had several hours. That was on the first leg of the flight. We actually had to take a landing, I think, in Texas to refuel, or something. Yeah, I think it was Texas, and then on to Florida. They couldn't make it in one shot because of there were some headwinds that were not usual.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it was almost always a 2-hop flights. So you got a 3-hop flight out of it, and a
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yes.
I sat back here, which was a great view looking out the window and everything. And it's funny, a friend of ours, you guys may remember, Kathy Ashcroft was the flight attendant at the time. So I was real excited. Oh, I'm going to be able to spend the day with Kathy. Well, she was sick that day, and the mechanic that got drafted into being the flight attendant. And he was a grumpy, cantankerous sort of guy. Really friendly, but I mean, pretty gruff. And when it came to pass out the meals, there were box lunches, and he basically flung it across, at you. Well, halfway during the flight, the toilet jammed up on the plane, and he had to go back and fix it. So he's in the back, and you hear all the banging and everything. And he fixed it, and he came back and said, well, it works again. And he says, now aren't you going out here instead of the gal? But yeah, it was a great thing. But we had to land and get fuel. But to me, going up and front and talking to the pilots and everything was well worth the extra time it took for a trip to Florida as opposed to going commercial.
Yeah.
I see that Leslie mentioned Fred Jurger, but I remember the main guy that did all that was Bob Jolly.
Yeah, I don't remember the name. I just remember he lived down in Orange County, and I think Fred was up here in the San Gabriel Valley. I don't think it was Fred that we picked up, but
Yeah, I know Fred did a lot of the models and things. In fact, there was just an
Right.
article about his house. If you haven't
Yes.
seen that, it's amazing.
yeah, I was trying to figure where I could come up with $2.6 million.
Chump change, sell your plane.
Yeah, I'll sell my kids. No. So again, just more shots around. There's the model again, different model of it, different configurations. Now we go visit his kitchen. They said this was a very likely a very posed picture because Walt was not known for being a culinary genius, but this was done in one of the magazines of the time. Everything in here is still original, the appliances and everything, because it basically got sealed off and unused for 50 years. So they have some mechanical doors and stuff they don't like to use too much because they don't know how long the motors will last. We'll get back into there. You can imagine what's happening now is we're all wandering around the room, all looking at the different things at different times, looking down over his desk. So like I said, this is probably Leslie's picture because there's the rest of us there wandering around looking at things. And I got a kick out of this. Of all the things, I mean, think about all the artwork this man created and all the things that he had and everything. And it has this was sitting on glued to the bottom of his in tray. There are more old drunks than old doctors. Let that be a lesson to you. I mean, I just got such a kick out of it. It's just so unlike what I would have thought Walt Disney would have in his office or would have any of us have in our offices. And here's a man at the top of this multi-million-dollar corporation with his picture of the old coots and everything that you probably got out of some rest stop along the side of a highway. So, and next
Is that his handwriting on the pad?
yeah, so it's just going to go next to it. This
Oh,
is
cool.
his writing. He's writing something about the biscuit eater and the voice of something. And this was again red pencil. He wrote everything on this red pencil, and on another notepad on the desk. And I don't think we got a picture of it there. One of the last things he wrote was the word Kurt Russell. And they've asked Kurt Russell, do you have any idea why he was thinking about you in his final days? And he says, I really don't. He did so many things for Disney and was in great appreciation of it. But yeah, so there's just different things on the desk.
But I just see the style of it kind of looks like the early logo and the name of the company. It's just really cool.
Yeah, it's all based off of his the logo and everything was a stylized version of his signature. So the Disney World magazine, this was not the Disney World theme park. It was the Disney World of the business magazine. It came out for about 3-4 years. What are we making movie-wise? What's on TV? What's at the theme parks? That sort of thing. So I have a set of those. They're pretty neat. And then just, again, other stuff that he had all scattered out there. And again, let's try to make the pencils as precisely as we can to the way they were in the pictures that Dave Smith took. And we'll finish up in his office and we'll go on into the kitchen area more. So again, the kitchen area has been pretty much there since the days Walt died. His secretaries have a very strict instructions on Walt likes his V8 juice room temperature, but the guests may have a cold if they want. They had a thing for the commissary of his type of cigarettes, and over the years he changed. He liked a French brand. Now he liked an English one. Now he wanted an American one. So they would keep the thing stocked with his favorite food, snacks, that sort of thing. And they had very detailed instructions on what to get. And he would offer his guests a snack. And like I said, V8 juice. They keep some of it in the cabinet for Walt and some in the refrigerator for guests. he would ask the guests, "Hey, would you like a plate of chili?" Well, he didn't make his own chili. They would open up a can of Hormel's or Goodhart's chili. He also likes Spam. They would fry up some of that for him and make him some Jello. So he was plain. He wouldn't have enjoyed probably the Club 33 meal as much as I did. He's a guy that likes Spam, chili, and some Jello on the side. But this was the sort of stuff that had in the office. So they've gone back and tried to get as accurate as they can with the labeling of the time.
He was also a big fan of hamburgers.
Yep. Oh, the one thing we have in common. And again, we had to get the obligatory pictures of here in his office. Then you walk out of there into a display area where, again, he had working areas where he would not only have in his office, that was his working office, but then he had workrooms off to the side that they may be working on a project and say, build up a mock-up of this, and he'd walk in and look at it, or have something they were doing. It was basically a work area as opposed to a work office. So some of these things are you see here in this case that he had a built-in wardrobe, keep his jackets and all that in there. They put in these displays. So here's a little list of some of the things we're going to see, and here's some of them. Gold pass to the Seattle World's Fair. He had a very small exhibit there, but he helped consult with them on the how to do crowd control, things along that line. And then he had I guess this is get out of jail free card from the CHP. Polo mallet. Electric razor, all sorts of things. Floppy hat, his eyeglasses. Going further into the work area, the way this is organized is that you come in this door here, you go into Walt's office. So we're now making a circle, we're going around and we're coming through the work area, back out into this area. And again, big thing about building the studio in 1939, excuse me, and what a revolution it was. So again, picture of his office here that he could make this out into a bed for him. Kim Weber did all these the furniture for the studio, tables, chairs, animators' desks, which are really, really prized by people in the animation business. All sorts of things, clocks, it was a custom design studio with custom design furniture. Valley Progress magazine made a huge deal out of Walt coming to the Valley. I have a copy of the magazine. They were just effusive in their praise because he was a big dog coming into the San Fernando Valley. You basically had Warner Brothers out here already. You had a couple ranches, the Columbia Ranch out here. But for the most part, Burbank and everything was pretty empty space at the time, if you see pictures of it. And for him to be building this custom-built studio out there was really putting Burbank on the proverbial map. Please don't sit in the chair. Big thing here about what's coming out into different periods of time. Big thing on Snow White again. Snow White is heading the festival of hits. The profits from Snow White let all this here get built. Some artifacts they saved from the studio. Elevator buttons, we'll see more of this here. They also did books of studio publicity pictures. The photographer would come in, capture Walt. So here he is with Igor Stravinsky. He's playing the piano, demonstrating some of the music for it. So they have, luckily the negatives are all filed away, but they have some of the books on display. And I got a kick out of this one here because we'll see some of this more close up, but let me zoom in here. We have over here Walt Disney Productions letterhead. We'll see that more coming up. But this is kind of interesting. The animation coffee shop and the pad for it, please pay the cashier, and then a menu for the studio. So the studio restaurant was over at the studio commissary building. But somebody over in the ink and paint building, my first office was in the shorts building, then I was in the animation building, then I ended up in the ink and paint building. And I've always talked about the ink and paint ladies had the tea room. where they could go and take their breaks and everything. And the lady Florence that worked there, and love the tea room. And somebody asked about the coffee shop, and I said I didn't know where the coffee shop was at the studio, and we'll be getting to that, because little did I know that was formerly my office was formerly the studio animation coffee shop. So I had just found that out about 2-3 weeks before we got there. So seeing this was a real kick. So we're all looking at the cases and the displays. A booklet here that they did here that they would send out to animators. We're going to see more of Walt's notes on how they drew this up. All these dots, by the way, are reflections of the ceiling lights. We'll take a look at some of these pictures. Again, big ad and everything here for Walt Disney Snow White. And besides, this was a real release. So you had Snow White coming out, topping the bill, but also Ferdinand the Bull, the Three Little Pigs, Donald's Lucky Day, and the Ugly Duckling. So, but he's coming to the Valley, and these are all the ads people took out inside, all congratulating him, thanking him for coming. A lot of these people, you can imagine, were people that made money on the studio being billed for carpets and that sort of stuff. And here's a brochure that they did. Article from the magazine, more of the buttons. So everybody here, this was an interesting one, and we take a look here. Raymond Disney, all forms of insurance, and that was Walt's brother, and he had his office right near the studio in Burbank. And it was interesting how many people, talking to some of the old-time animators, they said they were never encouraged to buy their insurance from Ray Disney, but it was always this a good suggestion that you might want to do that. So Walt didn't force it on him, but others in the company said it was probably a good idea. So Ray did okay for selling insurance. Pictures of the studio being built. Again, it was a wasteland when he came out there, built the studio. It's a massive complex if you get a chance to visit it. And this is interesting, a big thing about how it's being air conditioned. And if you go down into the basement, the air ducts down there, they had, they would say like, wing 1E, one whatever, but it was wing 3, and then a special one, Walt's office. They made sure that he had a lot of air conditioning up in his office. They had the problem in the studio that a lot of the animators decided they liked fresh air, so they would crank open the windows of the studio, and the air conditioning was running nonstop and not being able to do the business. So at one point they came back and took all the cranks off all the windows, and then some of the animators would make their own cranks, and they would hear Walt coming down the aisle, the hallway, coughing, and they would frantically be trying to get the window closed before he got there. So, but it was a big thing that was air conditioned.
Say, Bill,
Yeah.
did you ever go down into the basement and see all those big motor generators they had?
Yep.
For regulating the power, because the city power would vary and it would mess up the lighting when they were trying to shoot the cells.
Yeah, they had, and matter of fact, if you go into one of the buildings, right where at the beginning of the talk, I showed the thing that said studio operations area. There was a whole room of motor generators and stuff in there that was, it looks like something out of an old Tesla lab, but it's really cool stuff to go look at.
Is that all still there, or did they take that out?
It's still there. I don't think it's used anymore, but these big old circuit boards and, big giant ass knife switches and everything, it's really cool to go and if you're able to walk in it. I found for most, we didn't have the time this day, but most of the people, if you walk and knock on the door and, because I've walked in, hey, this is my office, you mind if I go sit here, look around? If we ought to go back someday and we can take a walk around the studio and we can have a good time with some of that.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting.
Yeah. So they took 2 buildings from the Disney studio on Hyperion, cut them into 11 chunks and brought them out to beautiful downtown Burbank. The Shorts building is one of them, and then the what they call the Bungalow building, we'll see more of that. But kind of interesting that you look how these buildings are all cut up and on pillars getting ready to be carried over. This is interesting here. It's a brochure I mentioned that they gave out about the studio, and we can see that it's we'll put a chart in here and we'll put a bunch of words, the blah, blah, blah stuff. But I think, I don't have a closer one. Let me see if I can zoom in this one. This note's kind of interesting. So interoffice memo from Walt, idea of the new booklet to give out. And maybe we could also make it a souvenir that we could sell them for 25 cents a copy to, for people. So, you know, again, just a thought, you know, the guy was always thinking ahead of stuff like that, and knowing people are going to come to the studio, rather than give him a souvenir, why not sell him a souvenir and help, you know, keep Roy happy, I'm sure at the same time. This was interesting. The archivist pointed this out to us. Again, Roy being thrifty, right? They had moved from Hyperion Studios and they moved to Burbank. Well, they had all the old letterhead and everything from the old studio. So rather than throw it all out, they just overlaid it with the red line, now in our new studio, Burbank, California. So spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to build the giant air-conditioned studio and then spend a few bucks to save money on letterhead. Early days of the campus, all the ink and paint ladies out on the lawn in front of the animation building. Us wandering around, Leslie grabbing us for posterity. We were so lucky we were able to tie up with her that day. How about a great advertising campaign? Business frontage facing the new $1 million Disney Studios. And look at the phone number, Burbank 5711. Yeah, a 4-digit number, not a 7-digit number. And if those of us that have worked at the studio know, there's not a lot of businesses facing the Disney Studios. You got St. Joseph's Hospital, a school across the street, but you got a freeway on one side, houses on the other side, and a couple small business things off to the other side. But you know, got to give the guy credit for trying. But this is what Burbank looked like at the time. I remember talking to Ollie Johnston, and he said when they first drove over there to see where the studio was going to be, they were like, what the hell is he thinking? Where is he taking us? What are we doing? So, you know, there were always the people that loved the old studio, hated the new one, ones that hated the new one, you know, loved the new one. There were different camps at the time. Studio water tower going up there, the buildings in the background, again, just total emptiness everywhere around it. You'll notice one stage and one stage only. That's stage one. We'll take a look at that as we continue along. More pictures of being built. Design of how the windows all had the shades over them. I won't zoom in on any of these. Again, let's lay out the brochure. It's amazing so much of this stuff has just survived all these years. You think about this, this is 80 years old. You know, it's amazing that they still have it. And again, studio panorama going in. We're going to be leaving the office here in a moment. Pretty damn neat award to win. Lyndon B. Johnson. And just the working area they have out there, modern telephone and modern books and stuff. It's a place that the archive staff can use. And some pictures of Walt at his desk. As you can see, the secretaries had quite a job at the end of every day. None of this stuff was there when we saw it because they cleaned it all up at the end of every day for them. Heading on out for a couple last looks. Studio just being finished, not yet occupied. He's looking out across his new domain. And they had some pictures up on the wall of various productions. So we have the director and stars here of one of the movies, Old Yeller. One that I had to get a picture of, everybody knows Zorro is one of my big favorites. And then we went over to the animation building. I've been back to Disney Studios a zillion times since I left there. But in all the years since I left, my office in the animation building has always been closed. And didn't able to get out, able to walk into the foyer. Carol and I met on a sound stage for the first time on stage 2 when we were talking, but I didn't really get to know her. Well, one day when I was walking into my office, this area used to be a Xerox station. There was a counter here and two big industrial Xerox machines. And Carol was standing out there making copies, and I came and talked to her, and found out she worked in the building across the ways. So this particular area, this little nook, is a very special spot to me, where really first got to know her and had the courage to ask her out. So it was really fun going back there with her this time. Then we got to go into my office. The door was open. I had not been in this room since 1981 or so. When I was there, this was divided into four particular small offices. My area was back over here on the left side where the closet doors were. I didn't know it at the time, but this had originally been the studio coffee shop. And then it was originally used the planning room for Disneyland. Tom Morris is doing a book on the early days of WED and Disneyland. And over on the wall here, there were several pages of his book pinned up that they're working on. But this is where they would bring all the sponsors in, hey, how would you like to sponsor, the so and such attraction at Disney World, or Disneyland, and have all the charts and models and everything else. So I worked in this room. Like I said, I was there about 5 years in this room, had no concept whatsoever. It had been a coffee shop, but I had no idea I was sitting in basically the birthplace of Disneyland. So for me, I walked back in here, and my first thought was, oh my goodness, that's where Darren sat, or Doran sat. That's where Joy sat. That's where I sat. It's, for me, it was really a great time to walk in and see it. But yeah, you're looking at the birth of Disneyland right there, just a plain old conference room. Here's a sample out of Tom's book out there of how the area looked. And here's the conference room with people pointing, everything that's going to be in it. Tom needs to finish the book. I think it's going to be really, really great. I won't show all his other pictures to steal his thunder, but it was fun. Then we decided we'd go for lunch. They have a topiary Mickey, which over the years, so many people posed for pictures with poor Mickey that poor Mickey died off. So now the new topiary Mickey has a very nice fence around it to keep you from disturbing him. There's the commissary, which if you watch any of the Dexter Riley movies from the computer wore tennis shoes and everything, the kids are always sitting out here in the patio of the commissary plotting their latest plot against Dean Higgins. Kind of scary. I can remember the names of the characters in these things. St. Joseph Providence Hospital in the background. Flagpole here. This was given to Walt by the people that did the Olympics. Again, Walt did the pageantry for the 1960 Olympics. He then donated one of these to the 1962 Seattle World's Fair. So they keep this one here at the studio. There's the bungalow building that was moved over again from the Hyperion lot. This was originally built in 1935. It was moved over here between 39 and 40. And it had all sorts of roles over time. Payroll department was in there for a while, publicity. Back at the Hyperion studio, this was where the publicity and the comic strip department worked. So if you're a big fan of the old Disney comic strips, Floyd Gottfredson and Al Taliaferro for Donald Duck, that's where they worked and turned out all the Disney comic strips. Not the comic books, but the daily strips that ran in the newspaper. This is now, for years, it was a home for the Disney University, and then it became basically it's used for meeting rooms and VIP functions, that sort of thing. So real ancient piece of history. In the background, the Disney ABC headquarters, and just over to the side here is the new animation building with the hat on it, the Roy Disney Animation Building. Then we can go into the studio store here, and it's always a must be to spend your time at the studio. So especially now with the Disney 100, there was all sorts of merchandise. So we did not get out unscathed. But then we took a tour, just walking around the sound stages. This is the first stage that was built. It was built basically for the filming of live action sequences like Fantasia. They did the where Leopold Stokowski comes at the beginning and he conducts the orchestra. Deems Taylor's talking. That was done here. There wasn't a lot done here. They started using it when they started getting into animation, television. Parts of the Mickey Mouse Club were done here. There's one plaque that identifies this as the Fantasia stage because parts of Fantasia were set there, but it also has another plaque on it, the Inept Cello stage, because of the Mickey Mouse Club. And Carol and I were there. Leslie sang during that day. It was a very moving ceremony for the dedication of the stage. This has a tank that was put in it. It was added back in 1976. If you see the movie, The Last Flight of Noah's Ark, they took a B-17, put it in a tank that was built in the stage here. So they could do underwater scenes of the shark trying to attack people in the glass nose of the B-29, but also the ship, the raft they've made out of a B-29 is in a tremendous storm, waves, everything crashing down. And that was done here inside stage 1. Again, that was the first stage. Then Walt, I've talked in other talks about Disney and other people's money. Well, Jack Webb needed a stage to film the Dragnet TV show. Walt wanted a stage to film other things. So why not let Jack Webb build your sound stages and then you can use it when he's not using it. So this was built between 47 and 49. It's a very large sound stage, said to be one of the largest ones in Hollywood in terms of interior volume. Mentioned earlier, this is where a lot of stuff for Disneyland got built. The Mark Twain, when you sail on it, was built inside this building. They did all sorts of things in here. When I first got to Disney, they were doing Pete's Dragon. So in the stage, when you walked in, was the swamp scene where the Grogans are looking for Petey, and he's in the swamp, and he, they're singing this song that starts off about how we love you, and then pretty much we're going to boil you alive. But to me, it was really great. I had just moved out here. I had no idea what I was getting into. Walk in this stage, there's this tremendous swamp. 2 weeks later, you walk in and it's a totally empty building. And then 3 weeks later, there's something else. That was a real eye opener to Hollywood, to me, to how transient everything is, that they come and go. And if you see the movie Armageddon, where they're on the surface of the asteroid and they're trying to explode it, that was all shot inside this stage. Just some really great stuff. They also use it for other things, little movies you might have heard shot on this, like Mary Poppins, again, Mickey Mouse Club shot on this stage too. Looking down the street towards the rest of the studio. Over here is where we could go and find all the electrical stuff, Glenn. It's still back in there. And there's Carol outside. This is the sound stage we met on the very first time. They were filming the movie The North Avenue Irregulars. And you see right now, they have big signs on all the stages. No unauthorized admitting, everybody must check in, do not go on. Well, back in the time we worked there, as long as you went in at lunchtime, if you didn't talk, you didn't make a nonsense of yourself, you could stay in the sound stage as long as you wanted to and just have a great time. So we met there, started talking when they were doing the movie, talked more outside my office, and as they say, that's history. Stage 3 is a real famous stage if you're a Disney aficionado. 1 year, I got a call from somebody at the Disney Studios that Michael Eisner was giving a dinner to his alumni club from UCLA, and he was on stage 3. And somebody asked him what they had filmed on that stage, and he didn't know. And they couldn't reach Dave Smith. He was out that night, so they called me and asked if I could tell him. And I was thinking of really telling him, oh yeah, that's where they did Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, or some total non-Disney thing, just to see if he'd repeat it. But I said, no, I don't want to lose what connections I have to Disney, so I'll be honest. But one of the movies you may have heard of that they did here was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This stage has a tremendous tank in it. So when you see all the shots of the squid battle that was done here, it's the tank is measures. It says well, how big is it here? I'm trying to find it. I had some notes here. Don't remember how deep the tank is, but it's got a very clean water filtration system that can do 4,000 gallons of water per minute to keep the water clean for underwater filming. Another movie that you may have seen filmed here was The Black Hole. Not so much the spaceship, the sets and everything, but the model of the spaceship, the Cygnus, I think it was called, was built here. Dave Smith from Imagineering and Dave English has been on some of these calls, worked on a system called ACE, the automated camera equipment system, something like that. And it was basically a computerized computerized system to control the camera, that they could program it. It would come in, zoom in, dolly in, pan, do all that sort of stuff until they got it worked out. So all sorts of famous things set in here. If you go in it today, you'd never know this is where Captain Nemo and his crew fought the squid, or the Palomino tried to escape the black hole and all the rest of it. And that's part of the kind of neat thing about a soundstage. You know, there are these big sound conditioned walls. You can see padding here, air conditioning ducts drop down. But in this particular one, this was set up. Weston immediately recognized it. You know, I don't know how he did, but it said, "Oh yeah, sets from a fire station in San Francisco or Chicago, Seattle, maybe some show that he watched that I didn't." And the guy working it said, "Oh yeah, you knew it." So we'll head on out. Just wrapping up here. One last look back at the water tower. Looking at the Disney to be returned one day, and hauling massive bags out of there from the gift shop, heading back to the Zorro parking structure. And here's a little pet sign that we started at. So let me stop share there. By the way, if you're interested in repeating this, and again, Disney D23 does give tours of the studio. Not anywhere as involved as we'll have. They certainly won't let you go and sit on the same couch Carol sat at. But if you remember Disney D23, they do sell the tours. You have to sign up online. I did look, they have some space for tours coming up in August, and I think they're starting to take signups for October. So if you're in the area and you're a Disney fan, I think it's about $100 during the day and a work day, and 125 or something on the weekends. And I think they have some discount rate if you have groups of 10 or more or something like that. But you go to D23, and if you're in the area, sign up for it. And I don't think they'll let you hold an Oscar, but to stand in Walt's office, it's a real biggie. So I encourage people to do that. So let me, oh boy, all sorts of things in chat. I hope I made a whole bunch of mistakes there. And let me just look at the chat. Folks, feel free to chime in as as I'm going through these. Okay. Lego is coming out with a multi-plane setup. Okay.
Bill, I remember being in Walt Disney World, and they had a Armageddon stage set up there too, and they ran through several scenes of the movie, you know, that you could watch. It was next to the My Life, Walt's story. And Leslie and I were talking about, did you know Bob Fraser too? I mean, he was a docent there at the Walt's History Museum that they had down there in the Disney studios.
No, I don't know him. Sorry. Yeah,
So he's a great source for stuff about Walt's office that they had set up there too for a long time. And yeah, really fun, multi-plane camera and all that.
yeah, it's great time. You mentioned Armageddon. Years ago, I took the head of my college, the president of the college, was coming out to town, and I was working at Warner Brothers at the time, and they asked, could you give the president a tour of the studio? And I said, yeah, I'd sure do that, no sweat. And then he mentioned that, well, as much as he'd like to see the Warner Brothers studio, is there any chance I could see the Disney studio? So I said, yeah, I think we can arrange that. So we went over there, and they were filming Armageddon, and they had the big, I don't know what they call it, the Beast or something, big motorized vehicle that they, ride out there. And they were test driving that around the lot, and asked him if he'd like to go for a ride in it. And, he was in heaven. Then we went on the stage, and, the whole thing set up, and they were testing some of the special effects with gas plumes fuming and everything coming up and everything. And he was like, oh my God, he was just in heaven enjoying all that. And then he got, oh my God, got to meet Bruce Willis, this sort of thing. So at that point, he then asked, hey, would I like to come back and take a job at the college? Because they had this job they would really like me to. And I said, no, unless it came with a divorce package, because when Carol went through her first winter in Potsdam, I think that would end it. But yeah, Armageddon was really a great, great set to go watch at, and I'm so glad they were able to. They were filming. Sometimes you go to the studio, like the day we were there, nothing was filming because the writer's strike that's going on. So I mean, it was really deserted, and that's why my original office is used by writers right now, and they're all on strike, and it was open, so I was able to go in. Somebody asked, was the Walt office at Disneyland a replica? It was a replica using the elements from his office. So obviously the walls would have been replicas built at the studio, but there would have been the real desk and the stuff placed approximately where it was during Walt's time. They weren't quite as painstaking as the recreation now. So they had it at the Disneyland, and then they also had it at the Reagan Museum when Carol was one of the tour guides for that. So you know, they were taking advantage rather than just keeping it, you know, in crates in a warehouse. They did put it on display for them.
Bill, did you? I don't remember if you mentioned that after Walt died, a little bit after it, that Dave Smith went through and cataloged everything, including counting all the paper clips and the pencils and collecting everything. So pretty much everything like it was on his desk and in his office is all what was in there, and put it, because they took photographs, so like you said, and put everything where it was. And then like for the air vents and stuff like that, which because the offices were used later, those the 50s type air vents weren't around anymore, so they actually had to make copies of like the air vents and stuff to look exactly like it did. So what you see in the office is exactly what the offices looked like when Walt died.
Yeah, no, we talked a little bit about that. Dave was brought in by Roy Disney as basically a one-off project to you know, document the
Right.
office, and that then he parlayed that into the job of setting up the Disney archives. But you know, as Dave would tell the story, you know, basically they locked it, you know, when Walt died, and just left it there. And the janitor would go in periodically and just dust and vacuum it, but it was strictly off limits. Then Roy had him come in, do the inventory, and you know, keep everything there in you know, in the detail. And like, yeah, he could tell you exactly how many rubber bands he had in the desk, how many paper clips they had in the desk. You know, Dave was a very detail oriented guy. If you knew Dave, he was you know, very very much that way. So yeah, thank goodness he kept it. Like I said, I was up in that office a bunch of times when it was Rod Miller's office, and it didn't look anything like it. They had taken walls out, moved things around. Roy Disney had it for a while. Roy was in the shipping, and he had it changed to porthole windows and stuff like that. So you know, for the Disney company to do this was not a
Thing to
trivial
do.
task. Yeah, they spent a lot of money on it, and I think, you know, what's really interesting is, you know, different people like or hate different things, but you think about Bob Iger. He could have just moved in that office himself. He could have set himself up to the next wall. He let the company spend millions of dollars to build that office back as a tribute to the guy that made the company that it is today. And I think that's you know, a very nice commentary on Iger that he did it. You know, I can't see over at Warner Brothers, the guys that run Warner Brothers today, spending
Doing that
50
for-
cents to you know, to honor Jack Warner. I think it's really outstanding that Iger approved it. I mean, the archive suggested it. They said they didn't think he'd go for it. They said he didn't bat an eye. Said, yeah, let's do it, and let's do it right. And it's done right. So Carolyn, you asked, do they do scheduled tours? I just mentioned that. Yeah, if next time you're out here, you're coming out, go to the D23 site and try to sign up for one of them. Or if they don't have one, we'll try to fit you in.
Yeah, I was just looking at that while you were talking.
Yeah, oh, it's the studio tours are great, and they do take you to the gift shop, and you can load yourself up on all sorts of stuff. You know, we were lucky. We were lamenting that oh, we didn't have our employee discount or anything, and then turned out my LAPD partner, our daughter-in-law, works for Disney, and came walking in and saw Carol and said, "Hey, I know you," and Carol said, "Hey, we know you," and that worked out real well. So we have mounds of stuff that I don't know where it's going to fit in this house, but it's like, oh, that's really cool. Oh, that's really cool too. And that's why you see us walking out of there. That you just saw Weston and Margot carrying their bags. You didn't see me and Carol carrying ours.
Well, so if we came over and did that again, then we could always, we know where we can meet for dinner afterwards, right?
Yes, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, Bill, I think Weston was carrying your stuff.
Could be. Yeah. Well, they have these
The
really,
bisque figures.
yeah. They have these really great figures where Mickey looks like he's drawing the triangular logo, Walt Disney Productions, and another one where he's got the TV set, and you can change the TV set. It can be the Mickey Mouse Club, the Wonderful World of Color, Disneyland. It's just the screen sticks on with a little magnet, so they're really cute. And
Bill, you mentioned Kurt Russell, and in our Zoom on Thursday, I was talking about this new Kurt Russell movie about his dad, Bing Russell, and how he, was a famous actor, and he was the sheriff on Bonanza and all this. Anyway, Carrie and I watched the movie last night, and it was really, really good, about how he went up to Portland and created a baseball team, and how they set attendance records. They had more people show up to their games than some of the entire other leagues had for the whole season, in one game sometimes. So it's a really funny show, and Kurt Russell's big part of it, and then his grandma is also a big part of it. And anyway, I encourage everybody to watch it if you have Netflix. It was really good.
what's the name of it again, Tom?
Oh my gosh, it's called the.
Come on, Tom, you didn't know last Thursday.
I know. Come on, John, help me. It's
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet.
It's got a naughty word in it. It's like the what? Boisterous Bastards of Portland or something like that. It's the Portland Mavericks team. And
I'm sure we can find. We have Netflix. We can.
if you look up Bing Russell, you'll find it.
Or just put in Kurt Russell will probably bring it up too.
True. Yeah. Yep.
Great. If Beth mentioned we watched Follow Me Boys on the 4th of July, I remember going to see that in the theater, and the scene where the father comes in with the melted ice cream and everything is just such a heart tugger. And every time I see that actor and he's been in a million other movies, I keep seeing him as the father with the ice cream. When I went to work for Disney, one of the things I always wanted to do is to go see the Golden Oak Ranch, because I'd known all about Spin and Marty, and I always wanted to go to the Triple R. So one of my first trips outside the office was to go out to the Golden Oak Ranch, and there's they filmed so much of Follow Me Boys, and there's the covered bridge from it, and just to walk across that bridge, again, I'm a geek with this stuff. I truly admit it. Walking across that bridge and just thinking what was shot here and done there and everything. You just sit down on a quiet day and just kind of soak it in, the pixie dust. So anything? Oh, Carolyn had to drop off. They have bad weather coming up. They've been getting up there in Colorado. I mean, everybody else having 100 degrees, and she's posting pictures of hailstorms. So they're just getting it in spades up there. So, but yeah, again, if you're out in the area, what you could do is you could all sign up for the D23 tour, or you can invite Leslie to lunch, and maybe she'll be nice.
As long as we have ice cream.
We were so busy going through the studio, the Walt's office and everything, that all of a sudden we realized we haven't eaten lunch, and the commissary is going to close like in 9 minutes or something. So we raced over there, and they were, they had some special today. It sounded really, really, really good. That's what I want. We're out of it, so you just had to make do. But we worked it out. The timing worked out well. So it was fun. And thanks for being, thanks for being the family photographer. It's actually one of the rare pictures I have of me actually being some of these places, because I'm, always the one taking the pictures.
That's what I thought, probably.
No, it's appreciated.
The one picture too kind of slipped by pretty fast. But the hospital, you mentioned it, that the hospital's in the background, but I don't know how many of us realized, yeah, that's where Walt died, so just right across the street. So
Yeah, for us, we were
And that's where our
celebrating.
daughter was born too.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Oh,
say, for us,
wow.
we're celebrating Margot's being born there. She didn't
Oh,
remember it.
Yeah, both of our daughters were born there.
no way. That's so cool.
They still have the halls are still echoing with Carol saying, "Give me drugs." They were, "Oh, you don't need them. You don't need them." And
It really did hurt a lot.
you were in labor, what, 3 weeks?
It seemed like it.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's, again, different pictures. We see the hospital, we think of a happy time. Other people that, it's unfortunate where Walt did pass away, but it's funny how things work. Carol had gone to Burbank and applied for a job at St. Joseph's Hospital, and because she had worked at another hospital, and they said, well, we're kind of full, but thanks. So she said, well, there's Disney across the street, might as well give it a try. Walked across the street, walked in, asked for a job, and bing bang, luckily it worked. She got there, and it worked out well, and I'm very happy she walked across the street that day.
Yeah, just think if she had gotten hired by the hospital, you probably never would have met.
I was talking to somebody one time about how many things you don't realize, how your life can take a 180-degree turn, 90-degree turn, or whatever, on something with some casual sort of thing. Like I said, exactly. If I hadn't been working at Cape Kennedy and the safety expert hadn't put a hold on our launch, I wouldn't have gone over to Disney World, wouldn't have applied for a job. And, it's just, that guy that one day saying, no, you're not going to launch the missile, take a day off. Carol's the person at St. Joe's saying, we don't have anything for you. It kind of makes you wonder how many times you say something to somebody and it changes their lives.
Yeah.
I always heard that Walt Disney designed that studio in case the whole thing fell apart, he could sell it to that hospital across the street.
There's that story that goes back and forth, and some people swear it's 100% true, and other people swear 100% not.
I don't know.
I'll say is,
Sounds more like Roy's idea.
well,
Maybe.
it does sound like it. Supposedly, it was something his father said to him. Well, if it doesn't work out, you can always sell it. But if you walked into that studio like I did in 1976, that area where I showed Carol sitting on the couch, that looked exactly like a nurse's station. You walk and there's a counter there, right as you'd have going to a ward of hospital beds and everything. And all the offices were not particularly huge. They were all about the size of a two-person hospital bed.
Right.
Yeah.
So the whole place is kind of designed like a hospital. If you look
Yeah,
at
he thought he was gonna, if it all fell into, nothing, he was gonna sell that place to the hospital.
Well, supposedly he never had that dream, but it's supposedly a comment his father made. What Roy may have thought, I don't know. Now, there's a lot else to the studio that we didn't get to in this particular tour. Down in the basement, there's a tunnel that goes over to the ink and paint building. So
the infamous tunnel.
yeah, it was all designed as an assembly line. You would have the animators in the animation building and all the story people and everything. They would do the animation. Then the tunnel would go over to the ink and paint building so that it didn't take the artwork out into the elements. Not that Burbank does get a lot of elements, but we do have a rainy season. And then it was, again, looking like a Ford factory. Down at one end of it, you had the ink and paint ladies. They would all do the inking and painting, and then it would go to the camera department, and then the next one down the line was the cutting department where all the editorial work was done, and at the end of that was the loading dock where the prints would go out. So it was all done in a linear fashion, and that was the beauty Walt had, that he could build his studio to act the way he wanted it from what they had learned in Hyperion. So in other trips, I've been through the ink and paint building, been up to my office there. Unfortunately, the tea room's gone, but like I said, for other trips, we've been through the, if you ever get a chance to go back there, and I don't know if they take you through the Shorts building is really fascinating to go through. I mean, old creaky wood floors, but stained glass windows and big panel inside and everything. And it's just kind of neat to think, again, that's where, so much of the original cartoons we love so much were all done in that particular building. So.
And
Actually,
all those, the way it juts out, in all the different buildings is supposed to be for lighting. optimal lighting.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sorry, Leslie, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was going to say I was on a tour with some friends here from Illinois yesterday with Howard Green also. And he said, did you know no shorts were actually worked on in the Shorts building? I said, really? And that's from Howard. So
Well, if it's Howard, it has to be a fact.
exactly.
I'll have to ask him about that because it certainly
Yeah.
had that name, all from day one.
But Snow White was, and Pinocchio, When You Wish Upon a Star, was written there. And but no shorts.
It's interesting. Yeah, no,
Why would it be called that though? Then I don't know.
that was the first building that I worked in, and again, I had hired on a Disney World, and they immediately said, "Up, change our mind, jobs in California." I got out here, and my boss was still in Florida, and I asked, "What am I supposed to do for the month until you get here?" And he goes, "Walk around, get to know people." And so 2 doors down from me, Jimmy McDonald was teaching Wayne Allwyn the voice of Mickey Mouse. I mean, there was just some great old people names there. And I'm sure I told the story about sitting there and drinking with what's her name, Shelley Winters, in that building. She was a hard-nosed drinker and didn't like to drink alone. And okay, so I'm 2 weeks in LA and I'm sitting here drinking scotch with a Oscar winner. It was a wonderful time to be 24 years old and living in Burbank. So. But I just walked up and down into the ink and paint building. Hi, what do you ladies do here? Hey, what do you guys do here? Oh, you can't go in that room. That's where the multiplane is. But let us show you our other toys. And most people, if you walk in and ask them what they do, and they love to show off their stuff. So I walked everywhere. The studio, the theater, for example, is used for mixing sounds. It's not just for projecting pictures, but there's a massive audio panel about 3/4 of the way back. And they like to mix films in there for the final mix, at least back when we were there, because they would put people in there, sound echoes differently off of walls, people, and all the rest of that. And I remember walking in, and there's a scene in Pete's Dragon where there's a ship at sea, and it's supposedly her fiance is being lost at sea, and Elliot comes and saves the day. And they have this model ship in a tank, and it's like 30 seconds just looping over and over the ship and the way it's crashing. And I was sitting there in lunch and watching. The guy says, "Okay, let's add some creaking timbers." So now there's the ship and it's creaking timbers. Okay, how about wind? Oh, that's too much wind. Back down the wind. Okay, now we need to have some sound of rain. Okay, that's taking out the timbers. Bring up, and they're doing it all. And an hour and a half later, you're watching this movie, and there's this ship crashing, and the waves, and the wind, and everything. It was, to me, fascinating to sit there and watch the artists at work, putting it all together. So, and it was also neat because they would show all the new Disney studio, movies, were shown there. You get 2 tickets to bring your family and go to screenings. And we used it for our film club screenings that I would bring in, retired animators or directors, and they would talk about what we had done there. And it was great fun. And that's again, they still use it today for employees to do studio screenings. So. I'm
Bill,
sure
while we were building Epcot, did you ever get over to stage 2 and see the Circle Vision setup that we had in there?
Yes, I did. I went over there, to see that. And were you there when they pulled out the Expo 67 film?
Yeah. I think we mixed that there too.
Yeah, because so many of the things like Expo 67, I had seen the film Oh Canada, and it was great and everything, and then it's gone, and they said they were shit up there to do the Circle Vision, and then somebody said, hey, we still have the prints of that, so let's see how we did it then, so see what we do now, sort of thing. But that was really neat. Yeah, I mean, I had all the projectors out in the big circle and the big screens out there, and no lean rails, but
we eventually moved that screen system over to Imagineering. I don't know if you've been in the sound, what we called Studio C over there at 1401.
I don't remember. I remember being over there at the sound area, but I don't remember seeing that set up over there.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. There's a complete 360-degree screen system with 9 video projectors, with it we transfer the film to video to use for mixing, and then of course the final was in. It used to be in film, and now it's in high definition video. Hey, one other question. On the tour, do they take you into the liquid nitrogen room?
No, where is that?
It says cryogenics on the door.
You know, when I was doing my Disney TV book, I wrote up a section, and I you know, because I was sending it to the archives, sending to approve it and you know, fact check and everything. And I wrote up one, the episode of Honey, I Defrosted the Walt, and I did this whole thing about how they were giving Eisner a tour of the studio, and he accidentally kicked a cable out of the wall, and lights and sirens came on, and Walt popped out, and he was like horrified. What have you done to my company? And they said, Eisner said, well, I'll take you down to Disneyland. We'll talk about it on the way. And Walt never made it to Disneyland, and the incident was never mentioned again. And I put this into the book, and they kind of, you out of your mind.
I think Ward Kimball helped propagate that rumor.
That would sound like a Ward, you know. I loved when I was working on projects to put silly things in there. Do you guys remember the Tron Arcade project we were trying to do?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it ended up, we had this idea of using virtual reality to try to do stuff. And we had the idea, for example, a hang glider, which now as you see soaring, is a, you know, that's sort of thing on steroids. But the idea was you'd be in a hang glider, and if you leaned in one way, the laser disc would branch off in that direction. And they'd done a visit where you went to a town in Massachusetts, and if you drove up a street, you could turn which corner you went to. And if you stopped a building, you could get out, walk into City Hall, and the mayor would say hi. So we had that all mocked up, and we were trying to do all these other odds and ends. And we had put together a thing where you would be on another one, you'd be in a kayak, and you would be kayaking, and depending on how fast you did the paddle, would take you down whatever way. And I was working with Barry Braverman and some others, and we put it all in. We gave a presentation to Marty and everything, and they said, we don't like it. It's all, there's nothing high tech about it. I was, are you crazy? This is, you know, computer on the edge. You know, the kayaking's old. So don't have kayaking, come up with something science, you know, oriented. So I had 24 hours. I had to come up and rewrite 12 different scenarios for this thing. So the next one was, instead of a kayak with a polar bear coming at you, you'd be on a canal on Mars, and a three-headed something was coming at you. So I wrote it all up, and I turned it in, and Barry hadn't had a chance to read it beforehand. And I had put another extra show in there, which was called You Bet Your Life. And it was because thinking about quiz shows and everything, done in the ultimate Disney style, where you start easy, name the 7 dwarfs, you know, who is this, getting up to the ultimate prize of $1 million, or you bet your life, literally. And if you die, you know, if you fail, we'll kill you. And I had written this whole thing up where you, the death would be done differently each week, which would hand you a poison apple, or you get hit by a lightning bolt or something. And poor Barry's, I put it in his folder, but not everybody else's. And you can see him reading it advanced as we're going through the presentation, and he gets to show number 13. I just look in his eyes. It was not in the other folders, but I still think TV audiences, they would have loved it. It would have been a hit. It would have been a huge success. the things you do to people. So maybe that's why they didn't invite me to write any more after that.
Have
I
you
remember
guys
when
ever seen
they were-
El Grupo on the Disney Plus? El Grupo is about Disney's time in South America.
Yeah.
And they went and asked people in South America when they were filming it. And people all said, oh, yeah, Walt Disney's frozen. They froze Walt Disney.
Yeah, people believe it.
It's all over the world. I mean, I don't know how much the South Americans know about Disney, but that's what they came up with.
Sorry, thanks. Somebody else was saying something?
I was going to say, I remember when they were building some of those games that were going to go into, I forget where, but I looked at it and I said, you know what you guys are spending on this thing? You better not have a quarter slot. You better put one that'll hold a Krugerrand.
Yeah. Well, we had some great stuff in there, but the trouble was we, you know, unfortunately, a bunch of computer geeks, we had people from Disneyland come up and they were talking about stuff like crowd capacity. You know, the hang glider ride really worked great, and you could turn it and everything. And they said, oh, now how are you going to get somebody up on this? And what if she weighs 380 pounds? And, you know, all this sort of stuff that we weren't thinking about. We had another really neat one where you had a bunch of dots would come up on the wall, and the idea was sort of like you would try to pin your opponents in. You would have an armband that you'd be the green dots and somebody else be the red dot. And by pointing at a dot, you could shake your arm and it would turn into a red dot, and you could try to cage them in. And we had a lot of fun playing that. And then somebody said, well, the trouble with the wristbands, you're going to have to clean them off before each guest. How are you going to keep them from, stealing them or just running off with one or whatever? And we said, well, we put a cable on it. And they said, yeah, but the whole idea was no cable. That was you. You know, we had fun playing with it. I mean, the mock-ups were great fun. But yeah, Krugerrand, guest capacity like 7 per hour. And a Krugerrand price probably with the thing that killed it was they said, can you absolutely have this ready by October 1st? And we said, well, we don't know how the construction crews, we can have our part done, but I can't guarantee you the construction crews are going to have their part done. And I said, you need to guarantee me right now, sitting here, if you can do it. We all said no. And it became a plush gift shop. So, yeah, there's actually pictures somebody had online of coming soon, the Tron Arcade, at the spot it was supposed to be. But like I said, we came up with some great ideas, but they weren't real practical in retrospect.
But if Walt had asked you, you wouldn't have said no.
No, because Walt probably wouldn't have also inspired you. I mean, you got to stop and think. We all know that when they build this thing, as soon as it's done, they're going to start laying everybody off. If I was associated with something that they spent millions on that didn't open on when it was supposed to on, who's going to be the first guy on the layoff list? None of us wanted to be anywhere near it. So that was definitely a think factor.
It was called Flynn's.
Oh, yeah. Flynn's.
Hey, Bill, I have a question. You were talking about the going to those flea markets, and I was just wondering if there was anything in particular that you remember picking up.
Mostly it was figures. The one that I thought, remember Dave getting real excited were the Vernon Kiln figures from Fantasia. They had
Wow, yeah.
studio, and they wanted to get some others, and somebody had some, and they wanted a ton of money for it, and we were able to get some of those. And it was one of the things like Centauris, and I think he had all the Centauris but one, and that guy had one, and he knew Dave didn't have that one, so I was able to get that. It was interesting when we were at the studio, and the archivist was very happy pulling out the invitation pass for Disneyland and the parking pass. And I mentioned, oh, I have some of that. And she goes, where did you get them? I go, from Dave. I had traded somebody for something years ago, and it was a figure of Pablo the Cold-Blooded Penguin that this archives didn't have. And Dave had all the others, other than Pablo. And I mentioned that I had Pablo. I got it for like a song and a dime, and it was like one of those things. I bought 4 things that I wanted, or one thing I wanted. It came with 3 other things, and Pablo was one of the other things. So I gave it to Dave, and thanks for it, he gave me a set of the opening day ticket and parking pass to Disneyland. He said, "Don't tell anybody. We've got 1 million of them." So. One other time I donated something to the archives, and I don't remember what it was. There were 2 things. I had found a prop from the Son of Flubber movie, and it was something else I got to the archives. And I get called over to the archives one day, and they very nicely gave me a copy of Lady and the Tramp signed by Walt Disney. So they had a box of those that he had signed, and they gave it to people. So the archives have been very nice to me. I've given them a ton of crap over the years, and they've more than repaid it. And I owe a huge debt to Becky and her crew for the tour that we had on that particular day. It was they didn't rush us, and they were very patient. And like I said, I have a zillion pictures because Leslie was taking them, I was taking them, Margot was taking them. Sorry for some repetition, but it was a fun day. And I think I think Weston's really happy now that he married into the family. So.
I took a lot of video too, so you have that, right?
I have those, yeah. Thanks, yeah.
So, and thank you for letting me tag along. That was fun.
We were glad. It's always good to see you. We're glad you were able to make it. So next week I will not be here. Next week I will be upstate New York in zip code 13676, enjoying my college 50th reunion. I'm going to go up to watch all the old folks and laugh at them. Oh God, that's me. So 2 weeks from now, Joey Bento has a talk planned about World's 64 World's Fair. He recently sent me a picture of something. There was a giant hole in the ground. I guess a water main blew and uncovered a bunch of stuff. And one of the things he found in the hole was like, how the hell could that have survived sitting in the ground the last 60 years? So I won't steal his thunder. He'll be showing it. But when he showed me the picture of it, it was like, well, that defies the laws of physics. So I'll leave you with that for 2 weeks from today. So hope everybody's doing well with the weather. And I know back east is hot, humid, smoky, and it's just generally a yuck time out there. So thanks for joining. I hope you enjoy the time at Disney. And Glenn, we have to figure out a time to go look at generators.
Yeah, that'd be really fun. I need to get you up to our house too and see some of the things I've got here.
Oh, I'm always available. Great. We'll see you all in 2 weeks then. Thanks much.
Thank
It
you.
was a great show.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.